Yes, we are live. Welcome back, my dear friends. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Zero Point Healing Show. Today we are going to discuss about how to transform stress in your life using PSYCH-K. And I have with me today my guest, Kim Wagner. She is a PSYCH-K facilitator and a Reiki master. And transforming stress, I think this is a general topic that all of us, there's no one who can bypass the situation of stress. At some point in our lives we might have experienced it, or we might be experiencing it in our current life. And I hope today's discussion is going to help us overcome that, find the root cause of it. And that's what we are going to do in this session. But before I get started, just a short intro about me. I am a healer myself, certified in multiple different modalities, and Zero Point Healing is a platform that I've put together. It's my dream, it's my passion, a platform that is that contains in my vision. I wanted to be a platform where all the healers and facilitators and therapists can be found, a huge web directory. And this can serve people who are searching all around for solutions for their issues and problems. So when there is one place to go, it's so easy for us to look into what modality do we need, or which healer or facilitator do we want to work with. So that's what Zero Point Healing is all about. And if you are a healer or therapist or a facilitator yourself, I welcome you to Zero Point Healing. It's free to register at zeropointhealing.com. As well as if you're interested in this interview, where I invite the healers and facilitators who are registered on the website to share their wisdom, to share their gifts to the world, to show themselves to the world. So if you're interested, you can contact me for that as well. With that being said, I'm moving on to Kim. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being on my show. So please tell us about you, your journey into healing and PSYCH-K.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. Look, probably like most healers, I feel like I have been a healer my entire life. Always been a little bit different and quirky. Really, my journey into turning to a healer professionally started when my parents both died quite young. I was 31 and both of my parents had died of degenerative disease. They both had cancer, and there was no history of cancer in my family. So what I found that happened with that is that I actually started looking around and asking questions, because there had to be a reason as to why. And that was really the beginning of my journey into the healing arts, I guess. In particular, I was 6 months pregnant with my second child at the time when my mum was dying. And I do recall having a conversation with my doctor at the time, and I was really concerned about the baby. And I sort of was thinking, well, surely if I'm feeling the grief and sorrow that I'm feeling with my mum passing, that it must be affecting my child. And I was assured, no, there's nothing wrong with the child. It's not going to affect him at all. So go fast forward a few months later when I had him, and yeah, there absolutely were some emotional issues with him. And that again was another thing that made me realize there's so much more sort of that we don't know about. In my journey, I became a Reiki practitioner, and then I also became an international certified health coach. The reason why I did the health coaching is because I realized that the conventional education that we're given and the things that we're told to eat and drink and do, it's really not in our best interest. So that was another leg of my healing journey, and also another modality that I have. Fast forward a few years later, and I was still searching for answers and trying to find, solutions and ways to make true health come through. And I happened to come across an interview with Dr. Bruce Lipton. Now, Dr. Lipton really opened my eyes when it came to health, because before I discovered his information, it was always believed that you are your genes. So the genes that you're dealt with at birth are the genes that you've got for life. So for example, if you're looking at my family, both of my parents died of cancer, and there was no there was no family history. So to me, that didn't make sense. And also it meant that I was a victim, and that didn't sit very well with me. So once I discovered that he had done the research about genes, and that you actually are not your genes, it's more the environment that your genes are in, I started to learn more and more about that. And in an interview I saw online, he actually mentioned the modality of PSYCH-K. And he said of all the ways to change your subconscious beliefs or to change the environment that your cells are in, which is your thoughts, so your perceptions and your thoughts, is actually PSYCH-K. And he said it's the fastest, the easiest, the most non-invasive, and the most lasting. So of course I paused the interview, opened another tab, and booked my first training session. And I haven't looked back since then. So now I offer, of course, PSYCH-K Reiki, health coaching, and a big holistic approach to health. And it's like stepping into a dream. It's exactly what was born to do.
That is so amazing, covering all, I think, with all the modalities that you have in place, I think it covers everything that is needed for helping a person get well and be happy, covering the health and the wellness and all of that together. That's so beautiful. So tell us a little bit about transforming stress. So let's get into the topic here. So transforming stress. So when we talk about stress, can you tell us maybe where the root causes of that is coming from? Because all we know is we are running in this busy lives that we have, and we think the stress is coming because of the busy lives, or something is not happening today, which is what is creating the stress. But in most cases, that's not true. The root causes might go back to our childhood, or it can go back to other places as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So stress is everywhere. It's probably one of the most overused words in the language, but the reality is it is everywhere. And look, you've touched on busy lifestyles, and absolutely it does have a huge impact on us because things are moving faster. Technology is skyrocketing. There are so many things for us to see and do and be involved with. So that is certainly an aspect. But more often than not, the reason why we react to the stress, or the reason why we are, I guess, triggered by the stress, is definitely from a root cause. Now, that root cause can be from anything in this lifetime or before. So, for example, I'll just talk about my son quickly. So he was 6 months pregnant when my mum passed away. And what happened was that he actually took on my beliefs and my stress whilst I was pregnant with him. So he was born and he already had beliefs and emotions that had nothing to do with something that he'd personally experienced in his life. So from there, as he was a young child, he's now nearly 16, but as a toddler and going forward, some of his reactions and responses made no sense. And it wasn't until I discovered PSYCH-K that I realized that what he was doing makes perfect sense, because he, in effect, lost his mother. So in the first person, he lost his own mother, because that was the belief that I gave him whilst I was pregnant with him. So it's interesting now when we look at people who have stress, it's generally not just the situation that they've come to see you about. I'm having a hard time at work because it's really busy, or I'm overwhelmed trying to do everything. It's generally a root cause that can be something from this lifetime, from when they were in their mum's tummy. It can be from generations ago. So we can go back at least 14 generations so far, and the beliefs and the experiences that happened back then are actually still with us. So we can call that intergenerational trauma in effect, because things that have happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, potentially thousands of years ago, are affecting us today. And I'm sure a lot of the viewers can relate to particularly having a reaction to something and having no idea where that reaction has come from, because they know for a fact they've never been there, seen that, had that conversation, or experienced that before. I know it happened to me once years ago, and I was so surprised. It made no sense until I knew about PSYCH-K and the subconscious. So the thing with stress is it's not necessarily what you're dealing with today. It could be from anywhere. And that's where PSYCH-K comes in and is so beautiful, because we can deal on many, many layers.
I really like how you explained the intergenerational trauma. And that's a huge awareness, which I would like to reiterate. So the stress that we are experiencing today might not even be our own, that might even come from our childhood. It can go back to hundreds or thousands of years back, where our ancestors, for example, might have experienced lack and scarcity of food, or fear of losing their life, being what do you call it, the animals and all of that which existed that time, where there was no houses or anything, that they were in complete fear of their existence. And in my work as well, I have found a lot of fear that we have today comes from our ancestors, who were fearful about their existence, who did not even have houses to protect themselves. So we have these threads of beliefs that we are having from all those intergenerational things that Kim was talking about. That's so amazing. So now let's step into PSYCH-K, and how PSYCH-K is actually helping us overcome not just our own stuff that's coming from our life, but also the intergenerational trauma that you were talking about.
So when I first heard about PSYCH-K and did the basic training, and I was able to work with clients, obviously the first person I worked with was my son when I came home. And what I found was, by working on his beliefs now and working on beliefs such as I am safe, I am happy, my mum is safe, because of course we worked out that it was about his mum. My mum is safe, my mum is happy. Those kinds of beliefs, what I noticed was an almost immediate shift in his entire existence. Obviously, since then, with all the extra training and certification I've done, I have gone on so many layers with him and the rest of my family and friends. But what that did was, it just showed me how powerful it was. So as soon as I changed those beliefs in him, for example, he just was a different person. He was happier. He didn't react as he had done before, and he just was thriving. It was just amazing to see. So going with PSYCH-K and working on stress and beliefs means that we're basically stopping the trauma now. So hundreds and hundreds of years of trauma, it stops now. And if you go on to have children, or if we're working with your children and they go on to have children, those beliefs, they stop now, so they don't actually carry forward. So we're talking about, for example, beliefs that women hold about not being good enough, and men have them as well. I'm not just saying it's women, but if you think about, for example, in the last sort of 100 or so years, or even further, women have had to fight so hard to be equal in a lot of ways. So whilst we've come a long way, you think about what every woman who's born today, or every girl who's born today, what they've got from all those generations ago. You mentioned the lack and being scared and not secure. So imagine if you're talking about a woman from the 1850s, those beliefs are still with us. So when we're born now, they're still with us, and no matter what we do and say with our conscious mind, so our thinking mind, those beliefs are still there. And in the background, there's a record running around and around 24/7 about how we're not good enough, how we don't deserve. Definitely not just for women, it's for men as well. So we've always got the lack going in the background. It's the limitations, it's the scarcity, it's the not good enough, I'm not safe enough, I don't have enough. Those things cause stress. So you can be the most successful person in the world, and believe me, I've dealt with some most amazing successful people, but they still have the same beliefs. It's very interesting.
Yes, and talking about PSYCH-K now, so let's move into how PSYCH-K is actually helping us overcome these issues.
Okay, so what PSYCH-K does is it's very simple and it's very quick, which I love the most about PSYCH-K, and it's also lasting. So what we do is we actually communicate with the subconscious mind using kinesiology, so muscle testing for people who have not heard of kinesiology. So PSYCH-K is short for psychological kinesiology. And what we're able to do, without even necessarily knowing the specifics of the situation that we're dealing with, you don't need to talk about the actual event that's happened. We are touching base with the subconscious belief, and we are replacing those beliefs immediately, and they last. So we're locking them in, they stay there. So we're effectively, in one session, we're effectively changing beliefs that have held you back your entire life. So with a simple and effective way of working, we touch base with the subconscious belief, we test the belief, we change the belief, we lock that belief in, and then that's done and dusted. It's lasting and you can go forward, and that belief will no longer be an issue for you. So, for example, a lot of people come to me stressed, of course, because it's the biggest issue I deal with on a daily basis, and they may come to me and we'll do a stress transformation. So we'll take away the stress immediately that's there with the issue, and then we'll work on the root cause, and we'll actually find out what's caused that stress, and then we can change that straight away. It literally takes minutes, and then from there we will move on to whatever is required. But on a whole with PSYCH-K, it's very fast, it's very it's non-invasive. You don't need to tell anyone anything. You just need to say, I'd like to talk about I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then we can work on that, and we can replace the stress and replace the beliefs that surround that.
That's beautiful. And tell us now about what kind of issues are usually clients come to you for, and tell us the range of different issues that you would be able to help our viewers as well.
Absolutely. When a client comes to me, to be honest, they generally come to me with the same thing initially, like when they're making the appointment. So they're stressed, overwhelmed, and they have anxiety. They're just not coping very well. But that's just their external response. So it turns out there's always something that's internal or a root cause that's causing that stress. And of course, that's where we go and we investigate. When a client comes to me, for example, and says that they're very stressed or they're anxious, what I'll automatically do straight away is we'll do a stress transformation. And what that does is it takes away the stress or the emotion that's attached to whatever the situation or condition might be. Sometimes they don't even know what is causing that. So more often than not, a client will come in and we will do the stress transformation. It can take anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour. And then once that initial fear and reaction is gone, we can actually work on the root cause. So come to me for stress, and then we'll get rid of that. Then we'll actually start testing and working out what the root cause is. And then we will go forward and work out that it's potentially something that's not even from this life. And then your body and your subconscious will always help us with the way giving us messages. But yes, generally, most of my clients do come to me just saying that they're stressed and overwhelmed, because that's their response that they're feeling. They don't really know where the root cause is.
Yes, and to my viewers, PSYCH-K is not something that we will be able to do a group demo or show any kind of demos of it, because it is really a one-on-one session, working with a specific person on their beliefs, on their life situation, and then changing their specific beliefs using specific techniques. That as well is something very personal to them. So that's how a PSYCH-K session is usually done. So instead of doing a demo, I'm going to ask him to maybe share some client stories specifically that might help you understand what a session is going to look like and how it can actually help you. So Kim, tell us a bit about maybe one or two client stories, as specific as possible, about what kind of issue did they come to you for, and maybe some of the discoveries you've had with regards to the root causes of the problems they had, and then how it transformed their lives after the session.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in the recent weeks, I've with what's going on in the world at the moment, obviously I've had lots and lots of calls and sessions. So one that really sticks to my mind is last week I did a beautiful session with a lady, and it started off with a stress transformation at the beginning of my session. And what we did when we were working on it is it actually turned out that we were working on intergenerational trauma, and we're talking going back hundreds of years. So when we started talking after the initial stress transformation, and then we went through and received messages from the subconscious, we were able to work back through intergenerational trauma, which was obviously going back many generations. So what we found was that the things that we needed to clear from way back then that had been carried down through every generation it had affected every single part of her life, to the point where it was part of everything that she did. It was part of her identity. So we were able to clear that trauma, and we were able to do some forgiveness on the initial trauma from when it had happened all that time ago, and all the phases from then till now. So there was obviously, everyone's trauma is different, but there were many things to deal with. But once we did that and we did some forgiveness, then we started working on self-esteem and self-care and self-love, and the transformation was phenomenal. It was like the weight was gone from her shoulders, and she was an entirely different person, and she had a spark in her eyes. And the next day I got some feedback saying that she felt phenomenal, and she didn't feel like she was weighed down by things that she didn't even know about, because that's the thing with intergenerational things. We don't actually know why they're affecting us the way they are. So I find that working with that kind of client is so amazing, and the transformation is huge. Now, intergenerational trauma, by the way, it can happen to anyone. For example, my dad was born in Germany in 1942. So if you're thinking about that, you think about what his mother felt while she was pregnant with me during the Second World War. It went to him, and then what he went through in Germany as a child and so forth came to me, and that went to my children. So it can be as simple as that, not that that's necessarily simple, or it can be something way more traumatic. You know, we're talking about things that go back hundreds and hundreds of years. So we all have them. It doesn't need to be something that's as dramatic as anyone else, but something small that's happened in previous lives does come through, and it does affect us now. Another thing I have is a lot of ladies, and I had a lady last week as well who I dealt with, who had quite severe anxiety, to the point of when we were working together with a Zoom call, there was quite a lot of emotion. So we worked together, and I initially did the stress transformation, because you can't make decisions without a clear mind, and when you're that stressed. So we worked on that, and then once we had gotten through the initial stress and we're talking about, or trying to work out the root, turns out that she'd had some abuse many years ago. So we worked on that, and we did some forgiveness and some self-esteem and love, and we worked on relationships. And by the time we'd finished, she was able to think about situations in her life without having an emotional response at all. In fact, she said, I'm just thinking about it as if it's just nothing. So as you can imagine, by getting rid of that kind of stress response, it just frees you up, and it just takes away so much pressure and anxiety, and you're not so bound up on in your tummy, and you're able to just focus and be happy again. So yeah, I do deal with a lot of people with anxiety.
Yes, and anxiety and stress being one of the major problems that we are dealing with as a collective as well here. So tell us about other modalities that you're practicing, and how it actually fits into the work that you're doing with PSYCH-K, for example, the health coaching. So tell us how all of that, so do you also use those modalities while you're helping clients with a specific problem?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I believe in a holistic approach to health. I don't think that, when I was doing the health coaching, that wasn't everything. When I did the Reiki, that wasn't everything. And the PSYCH-K is not everything. It absolutely has to work together. And to me, I do use everything within a session. It doesn't matter whether they come to me for one thing or the other. Everything does have to be involved, because you can eat the best diet in the world, but have a belief system that's still dragging you down and causing you huge amounts of problems. So it is all holistic. And I do what's called empowerment coaching as well. So it's to empower yourself to basically live the best life that you possibly can, and to be free and have no limits and no boundaries inside your own body and mind. We can effectively do pretty much whatever we want, and the only thing that's generally holding us back is ourselves and our beliefs. So by working holistically with all aspects, it truly makes a huge difference for clients.
That's so nice. So can you tell us maybe a little bit about the structure of the session? So when a client is working with you, do you have initial conversations, or how is your session with you would look like?
I do offer a free 15-minute discovery call before an actual session, just to first of all see if we fit, because as you know, healing is a very personal thing, and you do need to feel comfortable with the person that you're dealing with, because potentially you're going to be divulging some information that you don't necessarily usually talk about. So I do offer that, and then when we do our session, I will generally know with my booking form, I would sort of put in there what kind of thing you'd like to work with. If that's not filled out, then we will just have a conversation at the beginning of the session and work out what your main areas are, what your priorities are. To be honest, intuitively, I can work out most of the things that we need to work on from the first couple of minutes we've started talking, because you can tell, I can sort of almost hear the background talk going on. So then we would work out where to go, what direction to go in. If someone has got some pretty particular intense things, we would definitely do a stress transformation straight up, because I find that the best thing to do would be to take that initial response away, so that then we could really work on the crux of things. Some people just have one or two things to work on. Some people have got a situation or a condition that they would like to work on. So for example, something like hay fever, we could possibly look at why your body's responding the way it is. So we would work that way. And every single interview and every single appointment is structured to the individual person. So it just depends on what their needs are. Sometimes there's a lot of stress transformations. Other times we dive straight in and change the beliefs immediately.
That is so nice. So do you do online sessions, and you can also tell us about your in-person sessions and where you hold it?
Absolutely. I do in-person sessions in my studio or in my clinic in the town I live in, but mostly I do them online, so using Zoom or WhatsApp, sometimes even Skype, because it's just as effective no matter where you are, whether you're in person or not. The beautiful thing about consciousness is it's everywhere, so we're all connected, and I'm able to surrogate for you, and I've had some beautiful transformations with my online sessions with clients. I also find that it's often better because I can deal with people from all over the world at whatever time suits them, and there's no travel involved for them, and it's nice and easy.
That's so nice. And you are in Australia, is that right?
Yes,
okay, so if you're watching from Australia, you can contact her and maybe take an in-person session. So talking about surrogation, maybe that is one thing. I have seen it very unique with PSYCH-K. So tell us about, so with PSYCH-K, what happens is we usually do, the facilitators do a muscle testing to find out if we have a specific belief in our subconscious mind, and that's my understanding. I'll let Kim say about it. And so this process of surrogation helps the facilitators muscle test on themselves to find if the client has a specific belief or not. So please tell us about that process, and that's something very unique that I found with PSYCH-K.
It is unique, and it's life-changing. So what it means is that I can touch base with my own subconscious, and then I can check with you, with your subconscious, as to whether I can surrogate for you. Now, if the muscle test is strong, and muscle testing with the finger, so I self-test like this. So if it's strong, that means it's okay, and if it's weak, it means it's not okay at the moment. And when you're doing any of the balances to change the beliefs, there are certain balances that we get you to do, then I can still test for that as well. And it is 100% as effective as if you are with me here. So because often sometimes when I'm working with clients that are very emotional in person, I can still surrogate for them as well, because they're not responding so well with the muscle testing, because they're quite upset. So that's the beauty of PSYCH-K, is I can do it on the phone. I can even do it when we're not talking. I can do it by email. I can just surrogate, and it's effective, and it's just perfect. And allows me to do the PSYCH-K balances with you no matter where you are in the world. It's quite amazing.
Yes, it is. Wow, thank you so much, Kim. That was a fantastic conversation and a lot of information. I hope, my dear viewers, you did get a lot of value and insight about how the stress is caused in the first place and how PSYCH-K can help you. So we are going to have Kim's link posted in the comment box below. You can click on that and book a session with her. You can do an online session or an in-person session. And we also have a special 10% off discount coupon code for you. And the coupon code is 0. You can inform Kim about watching this video. It's a special discount that you're getting for watching this video with us today. So there you go. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing so much with us. That was amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you. All right, my dear viewers, I'm going to see you in my next show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do share and subscribe and share it to as many people as you can. If you know any of your family or friends, anybody who's going through a lot of stress, anxiety, depression in their lives, you can help them by sharing this video and help them get over that. So please do share, and thank you so much for all your support. Thank you, Kim. I'm going to see you next.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.